Discrimination and racism have been things present throughout the history of humanity. Thinking that someone is less because of their color of skin, their way of being, or where they come from is something that unfortunately has been repeated through the forming of various cultures and societies. Today we will do a small historical tour of this extensive topic.
Hello, my name is Barradas Hernandez, and I will talk to you a light about racism, specifically in our country, Mexico. Racism consists of the hierarchy, division, and superiority of race. It is not a new topic, as since it goes back to time when there were bathrooms for blacks and for whites, in which society was divided into those who believe that they deserve to have power. One may think that this was a long time ago and that is thus to not exist. But if we investigate a little and pay attention to things a lot more than usual, we will realize that racism in Mexico is an issue overshadowed by other language ones that are only heights and becomes bigger and bigger. And this happens both with foreign people as they are not safe because of their place of birth and with the original inhabitants of our country, the indigenous people, because they are often not accepted because of their appearance, language, and every color.
For years, Adolf Hitler was obsessed with ideas about race. In his speeches and writings, Hitler speaks his belief in the racial purity and superiority of the Germanic race, what he called a superior race. Due to this, when he got power, Hitler decided to eliminate each race that he did not consider superior. Among the people who were eliminated in this process, there were people with mental and physical disabilities, different skin color, and as many of us know, the Jews were people who suffered genocide due to Hitler and the Nazis.
Moving on to another codex, it is time for racism in the United States. Racism in the United States is not something new that simply manifests itself against people because of their skin color, but had a historical context that has been carried over from the beginnings of country, and though this, the Americans, who are mostly are racist because of the European ancestry. The United States is a country that is very strongly racist against Asians, Native Americans, Latin Americans, black people, and other immigrants in general. Former racial discrimination was largely outlawed in the mid 20th century and, over time, came to perceived as socially and morally unacceptable. Slavery in the United States began with black African slaves and people of African descent. One of the principles of racism was laid upon to facilitate the legalization of slavery, which was outlawed in the United States in 1865 after the Civil War by the 13th Amendment. After the liberation during the Civil War by Abraham Lincoln, Southern states resentful of their defeat during the Civil War created a variety of laws that allowed them to discriminate against black citizens. According to one study, between the 1830s and 1950s, 4,000 blacks were lynched in the United States. Events that were public and popular spectacles with sometimes thousands of witnesses were no acknowledgement of the victim was the mind of the aggressor, and this led to the emigration of 6 million blacks across the country. As I mentioned, racism was not only towards black people, but also towards Asian people, mainly because of their cultural identities and to this day because of the problems they have with some countries such as Israel. Racism towards Asian Americans or Asian has been experienced since the first major groups of Chinese immigrants arrived in the United States. They were discriminated against mainly not because of their color as in the previous case, but because of their identity, which ranks from geographic locations to their language and traditions. Suffering from the same kind of racism by Americans, Mexicans know what pain some Asians go through. The origin of racism towards Mexicans is the result of the annexation of the border states after the 1846 to 1848 war that ended with the defeat of Mexico and the ceding of territory through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Mexicans residing in said territory were subject to discrimination, so much so that between 1848 and 1929, 27.4 inhabitants were lynched for every 100,000 of them, and each peak brought the number to 473 inhabitants for every 100,000 of them. Over the remaining years, racism has not disappeared, it has simply become less visible, with some Americans believing that the presidential candidacy of Barack Obama, who served as a president of the United States from 2009 to 2017 and was the nation's first black president, as a sign that the nation had entered a new post-racial era.
My name is Marta Isabel Alba Varela, and I am the number 3 in the list. Now, let us turn to the case that reopened the racial wound in the United States with the death of George Floyd during a brutal police arrest. The prosecutor's office in Minneapolis, Minnesota, highlighted the brutal video of Officer Chauvin driving his knee into Floyd's neck as he lay pinned on the ground and screamed that he could not breathe until he fainted. Chauvin's lawyer argued that Floyd died due to drug use and a delicate state of health. This was a lie because of the results that were later published by a medical examiner who concluded that Floyd's death was a homicide resulting from cardiopulmonary failure due to compression of the neck. Rarely in the US does a police officer face any legal consequences, let alone a conviction, for committing lethal violence against detainees. For the African American community and the millions of protesters, this trial goes beyond that and seeks to determine whether the US is capable of being held accountable for the country's systemic racial injustice.
I'm Alberto Hernandez Morales, number 23. In conclusion, there is no way in which racism, discrimination, or segregation have had a good impact on humanity. The only thing they have generated has been unjustified hate and fear. However, like it or not, it did and probably it will continue to play an important role. Things like this never go away completely, but personally, I hope they do.